next guest speaker, well, I think he needs no introduction in the gemological world. He has been for decades involved in education, involved in field gemology. He worked for almost 3 decades for the GIA, and he's now working for Guild Laboratories, which has a branch in Shenzhen and also in Bangkok, if my memory doesn't fail me. Andy Lucas, he's passionate about gemstones, passionate about education, and all his body language actually tells us that he's really passionate about what he's going to tell us and the stories he's going to tell us today, enlightening us on the latest developments on the Chinese market. Ladies and gentlemen, a big applause for Andy Lucas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rui. Thank you very much.
I thank you, buddy.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be back at an ICA Congress, see all my friends at ICA, especially to be here in Brazil and see all my good friends from Brazil. It's great to connect again. Let's take a moment and talk about what's going on in the Chinese market. We talked about this at the Dubai Congress. A lot has changed since then. A great deal has changed. And there's a lot of inaccurate information outside of China about the market in China. And that's understandable because there's a lot of conflicting information in China about what is going on. And that is because it is changing so quickly. So what I'm going to present is based on Gilgem Laboratories intake, which we see a lot of the color stones coming into China, and our educational and consulting services to the Chinese industry. And these are our observations. One of the biggest problems in China, you have a very high-end stone market in China, high value, high end, and that is getting the stones. As we know, production is down around the world. Ruby, emerald, sapphire, whether it's Madagascar, Sri Lanka, Mozambique, Zambia, whatever the case is, in many locations, production is down, and so the high-end material amount on the market is down and the price point is high. This is a problem satisfying the Chinese consumers looking for high-end stones and what they're willing to pay for the price point. That's one reason why there's a difficulty in China right now, filling the demand and moving the stones. We've seen an interesting situation in China in that stones in the second-hand market are re-entering the market through dealers from Japan and then coming to China, also from Sri Lankan dealers that sold to Japan and have bought those stones back. These higher-end stones now that may have been sold 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago are coming back into the market and going over to China. And that is one of the reasons we can explain why we saw an increase in Burmese rubies coming through the lab when there's literally no mining going on in Myanmar. A lot of these stones came back through Japan, through the second-hand market, and were bought by Chinese dealers in Japan and are coming back into the market now in China. We're seeing a lot of that going on in the Chinese market for high-end stones, and that's why it contradicts the reality of what the mining production is and what we're seeing with the source of some of these stones coming back into China. Whenever you have a very tight market for pricing, price point resistance, and you have a lot of squeezing on profits, you see a lot of things going on with treatments and taking advantage of consumers. It started in China with the glass-filled rubies, and that quickly got exposed, and that market was pretty much shut down, not being disclosed. Then what we found were what I might call bluff stones. Larger but highly included and fractured Mogok rubies re-entering the market and coming out from some labs with reports that said no heat. That's true. There was no heat, but they left out the fact that there was oil, basically, in the fractures and being sold to consumers and not disclosed. One thing about China, once it's caught, Guild, other organizations can put a lot out in social media that reaches a lot of people. And then you see the problem maybe not go away, but diminish tremendously because the word gets out very, very quickly in China. Social media is a great consumer protection, you might say. We did see a drop in 2024 in the guilt. You know, it's interesting. Whenever you're at a show or in a market, you can hear conflicting things about what's going on in the market of that area. If you want to know what's going on, ask a lab. Because if stones are moving, especially in China, they need a report to move in China. We see them in the lab. And we saw a definite drop in 2024, especially around August. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Supply and selection, as we know, it just wasn't there to promote the stones a lot. Price resistance. The Chinese have a lot of price resistance to the global pricing on the stones. But I think the biggest factor was consumer confidence, and not consumer confidence in gemstones, consumer confidence in China in general. And at that same time, you saw all luxury products drop. And even restaurants I would go to, it might take me an hour to get in. At dinner time, I'd move right in. The Chinese decided not to spend money, and at the same time, it was the biggest increase in personal savings in bank accounts in history. Chinese were not feeling confident about the future, and they put their money in the bank. You know, as Americans, we just spend it on a credit card, but the Chinese put that money in the bank, and they wait and see what happens. We saw this drop in emerald, which had strong growth up until that time. Now, recently, we are seeing it coming back. Month by month by month, we're seeing an increase. And in our laboratory, we've got around a 30% increase over the same time as last year. So it is coming back, but the supply chain is different right now in China. The Chinese market is really interesting because it's so big, and Chinese consumers have a real fascination for products. They want to learn. They want to know about them. So at the same time, you can have entry-level people moving into colored gemstones, moving into emerald and other stones, and very, very sophisticated connoisseurs that have a very good eye. I compare it to the wine industry in China. You have people getting interested in wine, they get interested in an entry level, and then you have people that have very, very sophisticated taste and very, very high demands on what they will accept. Now, this is a social media video I did based on a conversation with Marcelo Ribeiro from Belmont and some of the leading broadcasters in China. You know, for years, China would just buy, first, they'd only buy Colombian. Then they accepted Zambian. But it would only be, you know, their most vivid color. Last 2 years, we have seen the Chinese consumer, especially in the demographics in 20-year-olds that buy primarily through broadcasts and online, move down in color to intense green, which is great for the industry because there's a much bigger production of that slightly lighter color range than the top vivid green. And one of the reasons is these stones look great on camera. They look great on the phone, and they're bright and they're vibrant, especially when they're cut well. The younger demographics in China made a big move to this intense green emerald, and it's selling very, very well. So this consumer base, even though it can be stubborn at times on what it accepts, this consumer base can move in a different direction, and we can help lead it in a different direction also. Supply. You know, the Pakistani emerald mines, the license renewal took a long time, and there was very little production for a couple of years. And the Pakistani material, because it gets that beautiful vivid green color in small sizes, 40 points to around a carat, it's perfect for the Chinese market. Once those mines got back into production, the Chinese influencer and live streaming market went right to Pakistan. And we saw a huge increase on what was coming into the lab as being sourced from Pakistan for a period of time. So new sources are very, very agreeable to the Chinese if they are promoted in a certain way, and if the quality of the material is promoted in a certain way. You can see a change in the Chinese market fast, very quickly. It's interesting in China. You know, emerald was growing, and then it reached a price, and there was price resistance to emerald. And so the Chinese looked for another stone, blue sapphire. I mean, blue sapphire was a star. 2023, 2022 into 2023, and then in 2024, of course, they're buying a lot more. They want royal blue, no heat, so the price is going up. So they're looking again, what is a price point, an alternative? Fancy color sapphire jumped like crazy in the Chinese market in 2024, and we still see it going strong. You can see the percentage from 2023 we saw on blue sapphire and how that dropped, and we see the increase in fancy color sapphire. So while one product may meet resistance with price point at some time, another product that is new and fresh and interesting in the market, it can take off in consumption. You have to be flexible in China. Now, pot parasha was very popular in China. Hot pink, very popular sapphire colors in China. What we saw an increase on, because there's only so much supply, the orange to yellow colors, the violet, the purple just jumped like crazy. People liked some of the colors. They liked the fact that it was no heat, and the consumption went up tremendously on these violet, the purple colors, and we really didn't see that coming. You know, in the West, we see the teal colors. We didn't see that moving so much in China. We saw this violet, the purple moving, and that has a lot to do sometimes with influencers. And if they can tell the story, if they can show the product correctly in live streaming, they can move unbelievably large amounts and change entire product demographics on what's being consumed in China, like nowhere I've ever seen in my life. Again, issues that come in because the profit margins are being squeezed on blue sapphire. There was a bit more consumption of heated blue sapphire. We saw some more material. All of these stones were sold to Chinese buyers as heated blue. And they didn't feel they needed a report. Okay, I know it's heated. Brought it back. Okay, we're going to sell it. We need a report. They send it into our lab. Beryllium diffusion, undisclosed, which, as you know, is a tremendous price difference. But the great thing about China, we did some social media. Other people did some social media. And you can see what we saw coming into the lab when we were getting alarmed and then took action. You can see the drop. As soon as the word gets out in China, people in the trade ask, consumers ask, and the people that are trying to not disclose treatments or really trying to do a fraudulent activity, they can be shut down very, very, very quickly. And if it's fraudulent and if it's criminal, I have never seen a government move as fast as the Chinese government can move to take action. You know, each year in China, we talked about it in Dubai, there's often a stone that is a star of that year, or a couple of stones that are a star of that year. 2022, 2023, it was sapphire, and Savarite took off in 2023. 2024, besides fancy color sapphire, tourmaline. Even when the drop came in consumption, we saw tourmaline going up. You can see tourmaline continued to do very, very well in consumption. And that is a stone that has been popular with the Chinese for a while, but they have embraced so many new colors in tourmaline. In fact, I would say in China, there's been a revolution in color on what people will accept, what they'll start to desire in different colors of colored gemstones. I think a lot of people can remember the disaster in China with rubellite. I know my Brazilian friends can. When the price, Marcelo, yeah, I still feel the pain there in that expression. When they drove the price up so fast and then it crashed. And then the consumer lost all confidence in rubellite. And for years in China, you could not sell rubellite. That has all changed now. One of the reasons is they see the price point and they see the value in rubellite. This is very, very important with Chinese consumers. And the other thing is, with a lot of high quality colored stones, there's very little availability and high price point. And with rubellite, there is still some availability and what's considered now to be quite a reasonable price. So we saw a large intake increase coming in 2024, and we still see it in popularity with rubellite. And many people thought that stone will never come back in China, but it is coming back now. New colors can pop up. What often in the trade we call lagoon color tourmaline, these beautiful blues that aren't too dark but have a strong depth of color and mixed with a little bit of green modifying the color. That is super hot in China for tourmaline. The only problem with it, the reason why you don't see more, is the supply. They just can't get the material, but they will buy everything they can get out of Nuristan, Afghanistan, out of any source that they can get that color. Mint colors, hot pinks. But the lagoon, I would say in 2024, that became the big buzzword in colored gemstones. And the Chinese consumers, we checked Baidu, all the different platforms for questions about colored stones, and you'll get a question like, what is a tourmaline? They have no idea what a tourmaline is. And then you'll get a question about, does the finest lagoon color come from Nuristan, Afghanistan? So you have consumers that don't know what an emerald is, don't know what a sapphire is. And you have consumers I will pit against any consumer in the world for sophistication in their buying. Brilliance, brightness. This is something that is now grown very important in the Chinese market. I would say especially in the last 3 years, but especially in the last 2 years. The Chinese now are really refining their taste, and they're understanding what brilliance is, what a vibrant brilliance is. And they're understanding that, okay, if you got a color, if you have a diamond, brilliant, white light. If you have a colored stone, light return, it's going to be the color. So they know color is the most, thank you very much. So I might hurt myself. You know that color is the most important value factor in a colored stone. They know a well-cut colored stone is going to bring that color back to their eye. So they really appreciate brilliance in the market, and they also appreciate fine cutting, or cutting that gives you maximum beauty and maximum value. And one interesting thing about the Chinese trade and Chinese consumer, we did a lot of education about cutting, and we did a lot of education that, it's not a diamond, it's not a piece of glass. You don't cut it to exact textbook proportions. You cut to retain the most weight and the maximum beauty. And the Chinese consumer really gets that because they look for value. So they will understand there is a basically coming together of cut, beauty, and value. They completely get that. In fact, we're getting a lot of requests. We do cut grades on reports now. We do them based on requests. We get a lot of requests for the cut grades because they're moving very well in the trade. And they really understand that cutter's job is to get maximum weight and maximum beauty, and that gives them maximum value. And that is one of the biggest trends, I would say, in the last 2 years, has been looking for brilliance and looking for cutting quality. Now, we have a gemological school. We have a modular system. Our classes are broken up into 1-week periods. We usually get 25 to 40 students a class, and we usually get 5 to 10 classes a month. We see a lot of the people in the industry entering the industry and relatively new in the industry, and that will give you an idea. Women are 88% of our student base in there. The new trade coming up is female. 25 to 35 years old, 72%. It is a very young industry. And these are gemological classes, and half of our students are outside of the jewelry gem industry entirely. They are influencers, live streamers. They may be selling fashion, cosmetic, God knows what. They can sell anything. They are selling professionals. They can sell anything. They want to become experts on gems. High net worth, high profile individuals, investment bankers, real estate agents, fashion people. A lot of these people are interested in the gem industry. And, what did I do? No, we're good. Okay. And a lot of the people in the gold industry, the diamond industry, which is hurting very bad in China, the jade industry, they're coming into color. They want to know about color. They see a great potential to grow the color industry. And the gold and diamond, I mean, the profits are just completely squeezed out. It's a brutal industry to be in right now. They're all fascinated with color, and live streamers, they're making up 62% of our student body. It may be perfume one day, now they're interested in gemstones, but they want to educate the buyer. That's the key in the live streaming. They have to become educated so they can educate the buyer. We have a field gemology program in education. We have graduate field gemologists. So this was one of the field gemology trips we did down to Sri Lanka. Okay. All of them girls, all of them ladies, all of them relatively young. Over 50% of them not in the business at all. They want to start doing in the business by connecting directly to the source. This is a big trend, and they want to tell a story. You know, it's funny, I'm not a social media guy. I was never on Facebook. I never did a tweet. I guess it's not a tweet anymore. I never did anything in social media, some things on LinkedIn. And then Sergio was showing me that my Chinese team has got me all over the place on Instagram or somewhere. I don't even know. So the power of this social media for these people to say, I'm at the source. I'm digging in the mud. This really gets the Chinese consumer excited to see the sources they come from, to hear the story about gems. And these people, especially the ones that are influencers, they tell the story great. They're down in the mud pits. Many of them tried the snorkeling and the river mining, going down and looking for gems. It is a very adventurous group of entrepreneurs that think outside the box. And they really want to try new things, and they really aren't afraid. That was my vice president of education. And they love the story of gems. A lot of fresh blood getting into the industry in China. A lot of new people. So this was a event. We called it the Aurora event, kind of like an awards, or we call it a celebration of gems. Damien was good enough to join us at the last one. These events really reach a large number in the public, and really, I say the best word is create like a celebration, right, of gems, sharing some ideas for the trade, but also you have a lot of consumers that watch this type of event. We make it look like a Oscars, you might say, for gemstones. So we had Gemfields as the platinum sponsor. We've done this now 3 years. They just had one for the pearl industry. Ruby, my boss, isn't here. She's at the World Pearl Congress in Zhuji, China. And they just did a Aurora event for pearls alone. This one was colored stones and pearls. So we had people from Sri Lanka, we had ICA people, we had Brazil people, large number of people there, and a large number of Chinese dealers, jewelry brands, and designers. And you can see the results. I have to have them continually check this. But one thing to see is the number of winning a work, 70. We had 70 categories. We have a large number of categories because we want a large number of people involved. We have over 600 participating merchants. These people, most of them are in live stream, so they have millions of followers also. On the Guild channel, our WeChat channel, we had 50,000 people watching it live on our WeChat channel. But if you multiply that by the designers, gem dealers, jewelry brands that put pieces in there and had awards, less than 70 companies, but a large number of companies, and put out to their followers, in the end, we had 347 on-site guests at the event. We had viewers, not views, viewers, over 84 million viewers for this event. We had on online voting for the public, 8.4 million votes come in. Put the pictures of the pieces on there. Which ones do you like the best? Participation. We had on comments, 334,000 comments come in. China's the only place I've ever seen where you can have this type of volume and really the trade working together. I really appreciate it. I know Damien has a super busy schedule coming and representing the ICA, the Sri Lankans, the Brazilians. So a lot of people. Rui, I can't see it. I'm a blind gemologist, buddy. Okay. This girl caused the largest consumption in pearls, or I think any gem in history at one point because of the movie she did. This type of influence in China is amazing. We trained Alibaba and Taobao people. And these influencers, it's amazing to watch them, their minds. They'll listen to everything I'm talking about on a particular stone, the history, the lore, and they'll catch something they know will catch their audience. They'll write it down. And the volume that they can move is unbelievable. And if you take that to the source, this is Barula, Sri Lanka. You know, it's funny, it's called China Fort. It really is China Fort again. You see all these iPhones out there, and they're selling live streaming. The dealer's going to give them a stone. They're going to talk to their consumer. They're going to negotiate on a price and sell it live stream. This one, that's my vice president of education in Swat Valley, Pakistan. This business model just amazed me. Chinese businessman, a platform, made a deal with a Pakistani emerald cutter. They set up an emerald cutting factory, got the rough from Swat, cut the emeralds. Now, he brings over 20 influencers. We train them in Pakistan for about a week, and then they turn them loose. One of the influencers sold in 2 weeks there, sold 20 million RMB in emerald. One of them, that $3 million, was selling cosmetics or whatever a little while before. And they bring him into China, pay the duties, they can afford to because it's direct, cutting factory to consumer. The returns, 25, 30%, they sell it in the trade at cost. So they make their profit even at a very, very low margin. Vietnam, a pearl farm in Indonesia, they are coming to the source. They're coming to markets, and they are telling the story of the source, the market, and selling the gems. This QR code, if you want to scan it, this will allow you to download a PDF of our yearly China market report. We've done colored stone 3 years now, pearls 2 years. And we give you all the statistics and observations we have on the China market for each of the report from our gemological journal, Gemology Frontier. So we do this as a service to the trade. But I would say something I've learned from the developments in the market in China. And that is, there's a lot of new blood coming in, and there's a lot of innovation, and a lot of them fail. A lot of things don't work, but the ones that do, they work on perfecting it. And it's taking the supply chain and the business in an entirely new direction. Our top 20 customers in our lab last year, 15 of them are new this year. The competition is brutal. But here is my comment to all of my colleagues. If we can take the gray hair and the experience and our knowledge and combine it with these people, with their innovation and their sales ability and social networking in China, and we plan in advance, we have production somewhere, we can move that production. I think colored stones can grow at a rate unforeseen in history. Thank you very much, everyone. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Oh, Andy, don't leave the stage, because I will make sure personally next Congress you will have 1 hour. Because let me tell you, you are a very engaging speaker, and what you bring us today is the future, is how can have solutions, technology, knowledge. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Rui.
We don't have time for questions.
I'm here. If anybody wants to talk to me, I'm here anytime.
Thank you very much.
Thank
what
you,
a
Rui.
great presentation again. Thank you, Andy. Wow. I had no idea that this was going on with Chinese influencers in that such a huge scale, which is good for your business. So, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is coffee break. So we will have a 15-minute recess, and we will resume our proceedings at 4 p.m. Listen to the bell, and we will be back in the room in a few minutes. Thank you very much.